Kia ora, mahalo. This is Steve here. I'm recording from the delightful student town of Angers in Loire Valley of France. I'm traveling on a series of conference presentations to the sorts of management science conferences I attend as part of my teaching job. Normally, of course, I live in New Zealand, and it's an odd time of day there, but they wanted this at midnight their time, and I think we're probably getting close to that. I'm not going to speak to most of the PowerPoint slides in this stack. I've tried to write them so they're self-explanatory. So I'll only chime in where there's ones that I think really require some audio track, just to keep the bandwidths low, and so it will hopefully be fairly easy to download this. So thanks so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you guys this week. And I'd like to right away acknowledge the fact that the inaugural president of this eClub, Dr. Bloore, along with the assistant governor for District 9980, Leslie Brooke, helped me polish this set of PowerPoints up when we met together at district conference. And our first inaugural, I guess I would say, thesis student who did Rotary Smart Aid research, directly supported by WashRag headquarters out of Toronto. Tani, also listed here as a co-author, as I've borrowed some of his material in putting together these slides. The previous slide just gives you an introduction to the new subdiscipline of humanitarian work psychology, a subdiscipline that probably wouldn't be anywhere near as far along as it is if it weren't for Rotary support to a traveling professor coming in and dedicating her first 7th-year sabbatical to developing this Rotary idea, and coming from North Carolina State University all the way down to the southern end of New Zealand where I live, to spend a sabbatical year with us working in this Rotary supported effort. We started out with 9 of us, and we've now grown to over 300 psychologists worldwide that are part of the humanitarian work psychology movement. There's also a cover of the first textbook in humanitarian work psychology. You'll notice chapters in it in the last part of building capacity that relate directly to what Rotary does, especially in its WashRag or the water and sanitation hygiene arena, including a chapter that I co-authored with Professor Lori Foster. But there's other chapters in that same section I think that you will find of interest. And the slide after this shows Lori. She's second in from the right. You'll see here with President Obama, she's now on one of the science teams there at the White House, and has shifted from North Carolina State for at least 2 years. Her position has been made permanent, so we're not sure how long she'll stay in the White House, but of course that might be affected by who occupies the Oval Office after the next round of elections. You'll also see screenshots related to the other 2 key founders of the humanitarian work psychology movement, Professor Stu Carr and Professor Mac McLaughlin. And Mac, in fact, had dinner recently with our inaugural eClub president, Chris Bloore, as he passed through Trinity College Dublin area on business travels. So they got to know each other well. And these 3 are continuing to help me build additional support and recruit appropriate scientists to this cause. My general feeling has been for several years now that Rotary's ambitions, especially where aid and development are concerned, are really sort of outstripping Rotary's track record in recruiting appropriate scientists and postgraduate qualified engineers and public health specialists. And so we're trying to fix that, and first we're targeting this notion of increasing our talents, in particular in the water and sanitation hygiene arena, because it arguably is the most science and technology challenging aspect of Rotary aid work. So that's where we're going now, and hopefully I'll come back and talk to a few more slides when there might be some additional explanation. This slide just shows an outline of the talk for this week. So I'll continue with some acknowledgments, and then there's an abstract for you to read, just a one-page summary of what is sort of like a conference paper that I've produced here, and we'll be recruiting more of from some of my colleagues globally. And then we'll get into the prime content. Again, I think you can step through those slides without oral interruptions from me, but I'll look and see if there's some places where I need to chime in. And then finally, I'll close with just a reminder that this is all really still proposed and thus needs to be fluid in terms of this arena, because we now have a board. The board has, for this new eClub, it has met, and obviously the club and the board will interact and refine the initial vision. So what you're seeing here is really conveying the initial vision that that we had worked out with Dr. Nicholas Mankus and Dr. Ron Denham and the Executive Secretary of WashReg, Anna Shepard. But these things obviously have continued to evolve. They've been influenced by our Assistant Governor for our district. Of course, she's been an amazing source of energy and effort in this regard, and of course the inaugural president. So a lot of these things are still being refined anyway, but we'll just close with a reminder that it is fluid at this point, and so really these ideas are mine, and I have to be held accounted for their validity, and obviously I'm prepared for that. So so please press on through the slide stack, and of course you can send questions through the website in case there are some things that I really should have spoken to but didn't realize. Thanks again. These next few slides just try to give some tangible evidence of the impact of the three main founders of this movement, Humanitarian Work Psychology, and especially the timing of the Rotary co-funded full-year sabbatical of Professor Laurie Foster, and the way she engaged with Professor Carr and Professor McLaughlin and their doctoral students and her own doctoral students, along with those that I co-supervise. And what that has done. So we probably have tripled to quadrupled the number of research outputs connected to this particular aspect of Rotary Smart Aid, and its the things that it connects to and is spurred on in terms of additional research. It helps that these full professors here are very active in the research publication world and hold multiple journal editorship roles or scientific community leadership roles. And after you see those, then there's a few slides that talk about some initial apps. So obviously I'm interested in the area of HRIS, or Human Resources Information Systems, the merger of or the overlap of IT and social media to personnel management and talent management, optimizing talent outcomes and talent fit. And I deal with that one last. The first two slides have more to do with things of interest to Dr. Nicholas Mankus, suggesting that we might look at the healthmap.org approach and see if we could make a water health map system that would engage Rotary's approved evaluation process, especially for WASH in schools, and if possible, doing this in a way that can interact with Rotaractors who have previously and very recently provided monitor evaluation support regarding WASH in schools outcomes, and also being responsive to Erica Gwynn, the Rotary headquarters staffer who is responsible for our partnership with USAID, USAID, and her interest in seeing us get better and better at selecting the right team leaders and other senior team roles associated with major WashReg supported projects. and that falls into my arena, but also Professor Foster's arena. And so she and I do have a mind to connecting that to the IT edges of all of this. And she specifically has always been a specialist in the overlap between IT and social media technologies and teamwork for projects. So she's a very good fit to that task, and we can recruit probably master's and maybe even doctoral students helping Rotary in that regard. Thanks. So this begins the prime content here. It's fairly brief and mostly self-explanatory, so I won't speak during these slides, other than just to advise that the way this slide set works is that you'll see the four different vocationally defined populations that we have for over a year now, probably, yes, almost 2 years now, have been proposing as prime sources of potential talents that could increase Rotary's ability in a global scale to make a real talent contribution to the WASH arena across potentially hundreds of organizations that are non-Rotarian and possibly engaging thousands of non-Rotarians as well as the members of WASHRAG and of course the members of our own eClub. But the eClub in particular was envisioned as a way for increasing Rotary's ability to contribute talents or recruit talents, even if they don't necessarily come into Rotary. In fact, I would imagine most will not become Rotarians, but we will try to facilitate, sort of in the spirit of a Rotary Community Corps, the notion of engaging people who aren't ready to become Rotarians, but they do have a particular passion for some particular aspect of Rotary work. And in this case, we'll be looking for people with interest in Rotary WASH work. So I think you'll find it fairly logical as each population is identified. Then the next slide or two will show some screenshots that are related to that particular population. In reality, where there's one or two screenshots, there's probably well over 100 relevant websites that we could put screenshots of, and you can obviously figure out how to go find those if you'd like to see more examples that connect to this part of the slide set. Thanks. So, as just mentioned under the word who on the previous slide, we've already talked about who sits inside these four populations, what kind of folks they are, or what sort of online organizations, institutions, and professional bodies they might be associated with for three out of those four, with the fourth coming from all walks of life, really. But the emphasis here on these next couple slides is really talking about the different roles those four populations play, and why they were identified in the first place. And it also reminds us then of the movements that they're associated with, which have a life, obviously, in two cases especially, well beyond what the eClub is about, but is something that can be applied to what this eClub is trying to achieve, at least, again, in this one proposed mission area that I've targeted in this talk. So what follows then is pretty self-explanatory, and closes with a reminder of how fluid this must be, because we now have a board. The eClub is real, and we have a club, a membership, and a board that needs to have a dialogue about these things, as well as the non-academic missions, and carry on from there. But I wanted to use my first guest speaker slot to just make clear, I hope, what the initial vision was, and the sorts of things that were discussed in those first few days of conversation with Dr. Nicholas Mankus and Dr. Ron Denham, and then later Erica Gwen at headquarters Rotary, and Anna Shepard, the executive secretary for WashReg. So I'll leave you at that, and say au revoir. We're finally finishing this 7 weeks of management science conference presentation. Some of the papers at the conferences I've presented have been related closely to what this eClub is trying to achieve, but obviously I've stayed on the academic technical side of things. We're off to Croatia now for a week's holiday, and then back to New Zealand in mid-July, and hope to catch up with you all then. So again, thanks for making time for this, and thanks for your interest, of course, in this eClub. It's been a long road to get to this stage, but we don't try to build temporary things in Rotary, so it's proper that it take us quite some time. So hope you all do well, and I look forward to hearing your talks, and I hope to look forward to giving a talk that's probably a lot more fun to listen to when we talk about when I present my new member talk, maybe in about a month or two, and we'll see you then, and hopefully often before then. I look forward to questions coming in at me through the website. Bye-bye.